Happy Friday, Year 4. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe. Now I want you to get your pencils and your papers and write down the long date, Friday 19th of June 2020, and the LI to draw a comic strip. Excellent. So can you think of a famous comic book writer? Pause and have a think. Now this man over here in this picture, his name is Stan Lee, and he was a famous comic book writer. He passed away in 2018. He wrote for Marvel Comics and introduced superheroes targeted at older readers. So can you think of any superheroes that you know of? So examples of comics that he wrote are Flash, Green Lantern, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Green Arrow. So now that we have some background information about comic books, let's look at the features of a comic strip. A comic strip is a sequence of drawings arranged in interrelated panels or boxes. Over here, where the arrow is pointing towards, are panels, and over here are examples of the boxes. The story is written in a short narrative. This is shown through caption boxes, which the narrator would be saying. Captions tend to be colored boxes to show the difference to speech. Now, do you know what a narrator is? What would the narrator's job be? Now, I know that you've gone through this with Miss Naidu when you were looking through features of play scripts, so pause and have a think right now. Excellent. So a narrator would usually be telling the story through their own perspective, so they would know how the characters are feeling. So they're narrating the story, so storytelling, and they usually write in third person. So can you think about features of third person when you're writing? What would the pronouns be? Excellent. So you wouldn't use I, you would use he, she, they, or you would say the characters' names or a group. Excellent. And the caption boxes, if you can see where the arrow is pointing towards, this is where the narrator is telling the story, where they're narrating the story. And they'll look like this. So let's take a read through this. But at that moment, behind a partially destroyed wall, the Daily Planet reporter removes his outer garments, transforming himself to ... And this is also where the narrator is telling the story in third person, and they know how the characters are feeling, and they have their own opinions as well because it's telling the story through their own perspective. Excellent. Let's move on. Speech bubbles are usually round or square shaped with a tail pointing to the character's mouth, indicating that the character is speaking out loud. So take a look at this section of the comic strip here. Can you identify where the speech bubbles are? Excellent. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And as you can see, they're pointing to the character's mouth to indicate that they're speaking out loud, and it can come in these two shapes. A screen bubble indicates a character is screaming or shouting and has a jagged outline or a thicker line. The letters are usually larger or bolder than normal. So as you can see over here, the scream bubbles, they're all pointy. So this is to indicate that the character is screaming or shouting. And as you can see over here, the letters are usually larger or bolder. So over here we have doctor, which is very large and it's very bold. Excellent. Broadcast bubbles may have a jagged tail like a lightning flash shape. Letters are sometimes italicized. Broadcast bubbles indicate that the speaker is communicating through an electronic device such as radio, television, or telephone. So over here we can see how the bubble looks like, and it also gives the audience and gives them like a visual of how it would sound. So when they're communicating through an electronic device, we'll be able to understand how it can sound like. Excellent. A whisper bubble shows that the speaker is talking in a softer or quieter tone. They are usually drawn with a dashed or dotted outline, smaller letters, and a paler grey writing. As you can see over here, where my arrow is pointing towards, this is called a whisper bubble. My turn, whisper bubble. Your turn, whisper bubble. To indicate that the speaker is speaking in a softer or quieter tone. It could either be dotted lines or the words can be very pale. So there's a lot of visuals going on in comic strips. Thought bubbles are cloud-shaped word bubbles that indicate that a character is thinking and not talking out loud. This is really important. When you see, let me point over here, these bubbles, these circles, this is indicating that the character is thinking. So they're not talking, they're not speaking to another character, they're just thinking something in their head. And as an audience, with this thought bubble, we can read what they're thinking about. Action words indicate the sound that can be heard in a comic strip. They are usually in colored, jagged splats, and the letters are all in capitals, and quite often exclamation marks are used. We say here pow, bonk, splat. These are all action words of the sounds that have taken place. And now let's take a look at this comic strip here. Can you spot any of the features that we just discussed? You can pause and take a close look. Excellent. So we have the narrator here narrating the story, and we can tell because it's in this box. Early one morning. Over here is also the narrator. And down here, usually to the side, we have speech bubbles pointing to the mouth. So let's just rub this out. So we can see the character. I'm sure we're all familiar with this fairy tale. Little Red Riding Hood is speaking out loud, and we know this because this speech bubble is pointing towards her mouth. Now, can you spot a bubble, a thought bubble? Now take a close look. So now there's a thought bubble where over here, 1 and 2 is to indicate that the wolf is thinking and not talking out loud. So over here, the wolf is thinking yum when he looks at Little Red Riding Hood. So obviously, Little Red Riding Hood did not hear that, because if she did, she would have probably run away. Excellent. And comic strips are written in the present tense. When the wolf is asking Little Red Riding Hood, Where are you going? This is present. So he's not saying where did you go, and he's not saying where will you go. And when Little Red Riding over here says, what a good idea. So she doesn't say it was a good idea. So remember, third person, the narrator is narrating in third person and it's in the present tense. Excellent. So this is just another example of how comic strips can look like. You can see the title of the comic strip. So for your task, now just like we did last Friday, you have to go to this site, literacyshed.com. This site will be in the description box below and it'll be in our Year 4 online learning platform. Now this time the animation you'll be seeing is different. The clip is about a secret agent called Walker Beckett who has a problem of pigeon-sized proportions. When a pigeon gets trapped inside the spy's briefcase, all kinds of mayhem ensue. Now I want you to watch all of the clip and then draw a storyboard based on that clip. But before you do that, you have a template over here. A beginning, a build up, what was the problem, the resolution, so how did the problem get solved, and the ending, so you can plan it a bit before you draw your comic strip, just so that you can structure your thoughts. So this template will be on the school website as well, where you can access that. And afterwards, after the planning, I want you to draw your comic strip. Now comic strips, there's various ways that they look like, so this is just one template that you can use. At the top over here, you write down the title, Pigeon Impossible, that is the title of the animation clip, and then you can do your drawings, your characters, what they're saying, and the narrator. So you will be the narrator, you will narrate the story in third person. So this is one template that you can use. These are the same templates, or you can use this template over here. You can draw, write down something, draw and write down something, and record the features of a comic strip. The thought bubbles, the bubbles pointed towards the character's mouth, and make sure that you use those in your strip. And this will all be on the school website. And if you don't want to use these templates, you can draw your own template. I don't want you to feel that you're restricted by these templates. You can draw your own ones that you can have enough space to do your drawing, however you feel comfortable. And when you're done that, you can email your work to the Year 4 team, year4@grange.harrow.sch.uk. And before we finish, I would just like to remind you that there's a book review challenge going on. Mr. Olens posted a video a couple of days ago, so go on the Year 4 playlist and definitely check out that video. So if you're reading any book, you can write down a book review and send it over to us so that we can look through it. And remember the features of a book review. So who was the book review by? It's by you, so you'll write your name, what did you like about it, what didn't you like about it, how many stars would you give it, and would you recommend, what is this book about? So a short summary, writing the main information, but don't give away the whole story. Remember, it's just a review, so that you want people to read your review and say, I think that looks good, let me read that book. So you don't give away everything. And would you recommend this book to everyone? So definitely write down a book review and you can send it over, and we'd love to look through it. Now have a great weekend everyone, and see you next week.